All right, guys, welcome back to a podcast Salem. As you guys know, I'm Jorge,
My name is Alan.
and today we got Daniel Solano.
What's up, guys?
Thanks for coming through, man.
I appreciate you guys for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, so today we're gonna talk a little bit about you would call it cannabis, marijuana,
I would say the cannabis industry is kind of what we call it. Yeah.
cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of just like the cannabis is kind of like the general term for it because it all requires cannabis in whatever product it is. Yeah. So
Nice, nice. How long have you been in the industry for?
I've been like in and out of the industry since 2015. I've worked like a few black market trim jobs and then like started to get into the medical field of it and lived on a few grows and worked for a few professional like rec grows. And so now I've been kind of working in the one farm that represents 3 farms and an extraction company for about 4 years now. So in it for a while, a little bit off and on, but for the most part, like about 7-8 years now. Yeah, so quite a bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. Have you always been interested in this field, or?
Yeah, honestly, what really got me into it was I grew up in Eugene, and anybody that grows up in Eugene knows marijuana is pretty popular.
Yeah.
It's kind of and we're a little spoiled because the whole thing about Eugene is that's kind of where like the hippies went to go retire, and so everyone's proud about their weed. Like growing up, like I had a bunch of friends that like their parents would grow and. They'd be like, "Oh, Daniel, you got to check out our weed, and it's all natural. We use these soils, you know." So I was around like a lot of good weed, and so what really got me interested in it was I've had 2 knee surgeries. This one, my right one, was a meniscal tear. This one was ACL, MCL, PCL, and meniscal tear. And they used to give me like I'm a big guy, so they gave me like a lot of like OxyContin, Narco, all these pain pills, and I hated how I felt, and I was just like, man, I'm a zombie. So don't get me in trouble here,
Yeah.
but when I was in high school, I used to take those pills and I used to trade them for weed because
Yeah.
it was just a lot better. Like I was a lot more in control. It managed the pain. Marijuana, the carophyllene in it, which is a terpene, and I'll go more into that, is a disinflammatory. So it actually helped with the swelling. And, you know, once I got back on my feet fully healed, I had a grandma who's had knee pain as well. And, you know, she has like multiple different medications. Like she takes morphine daily, which is a little concerning. And so I started giving her little bits of like edibles and weed and just to try it out. And it was out helping her a lot. So it was kind of like, okay, I know where I'm going. Like this is where I kind of want to get into. Like there's something here, you know.
Exactly. Let's talk about that. But before we do you have a question? Before we talk about the whole weed with healing and all that?
No. I'll go ahead with the story. I was going to ask. So did your family, did they say anything when you brought up, like, oh, maybe you should try this?
Oh, yeah, there was big resistance. Oh, 100%. Like,
or you just, like, snuck it in her, like, drink or something?
So it was like, I think we had gotten caught enough times by my parents. Like, they would find pipes. And I think one time, like, we thought they were gone, and I was just taking this fat bong rip, like... And I just remember, like, this is the worst cough I've ever had in my life because, like, as, like, I'm taking this big bong rip, like, my dad opens up the door and, like, ay, mira que lindo. I'm like, just like
Shit.
just dying.
Didn't you leave?
Yeah, I was like, ah. And so, like, I think they started, like, and when I went off to college, I went up to Oregon State. I took, like, classes at Lynn Benton and, like, a class at Oregon State. And, like, when they would come to visit, it was like, all right, we know what he's up to. You know, it was like, it was no hiding it. And so they kind of got like used to it and they're just like, what are we going to do? But then I think what really turned their heads on it was one, they saw the tax revenue. And I told them like, look, the tax revenue that comes from this is going to help firefighters, it's going to help police, it's going to help schools, it's going to go to all this. And people are going to do it anyways. It is a major market over here in Oregon. Like we all know multiple people who smoke marijuana, you know, and I'd rather have them go to a dispensary where it's going to be taxed, it's going to be regulated. You know what you're going to get. You know, it's not laced with anything. And then that money go to the state to help those things. Then some kid who's like, dude, this is chronic, man. It's like, no, I'd rather have it help out. And so it was that. And then also the fact that like, they know when I'm like into something, I'm going all in. And so the fact that like they hear my knowledge, like they hear me talk and like they act like they're understanding, but I know they don't understand. You know, it's just so much that they just, because at the end of the day, like, yeah, but I'm going to trust this. I'm like, okay, trust the pharmaceutical companies. They have your best interest, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. That's a different.
I'm like, I'm sure they have your best interest in heart. And, you know, I'm very careful with what I say because we aren't FDA approved. So I can't say, hey, this will do this for you. No, like, no, this has a tendency to do these things for you. And like, it's helped me, but you know, everyone's endocannabinoid system, which is the natural cannabinoid receptors in your brain. It's why, you know, you're not like when you smoke weed, it's not hurting your liver. It's not hurting other part of your body because your brain's naturally ready to accept it through those endocannabinoid systems. It's why like I prefer that than these pills that are like ibuprofen's hurting your, you know, it's hurting your liver. It's hurting your kidneys. There's something that like these medicines do. Because essentially what you're doing with the pharmaceuticals is you're taking a pill to cure one thing, and then you're taking another cure for the negative effects of those pills. Well, marijuana is just like, I'll just eat an edible. I'm chilling, you know? And so I think they're starting to see that. And so it's kind of like changed their mind. I mean, I definitely have some aunties and uncles that are like, so you think you want to start like a business together? No. Remember when you guys were talking smack? Yeah, I heard it through my mom. Yeah, I know what you guys are saying. I know, yeah, I knew exactly what you guys are saying.
You're Hispanic, right? Your family's Hispanic, so it's interesting because you know, I mean, we're Hispanic. The Hispanic community, at least our parents, it's a little bit different to educate them in marijuana or any of that. I feel like more in the U.S. It's more accepting, I guess. I could be wrong. Pero like if you tell my mom or I'm sure your mom, they're like, no, sáquese con esa cosa. Or like they just don't want to hear it. They think it's just bad. Do you think that's true or?
It's 100% true. And I think it's because they're always on survival mode. And so a lot of these like taboo subjects that we're allowed to explore here in the States, they weren't allowed to. Like my parents lived in El Salvador during the time of the Civil War. And so they had to trust institutions. Because if you were to question something, you could end up dead. If you were to explore something, it could kill you, you know, like all these different things. And so, you know, especially like in Mexico in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, like same thing. There's no civil war, but it was just such a dangerous thing. They just automatically assume like, oh, marijuana, cartel. But it's not that way, you know? And so they're not used to questioning about it because they're, like I said, they're in survival mode. They're like, no, we need to, this is always been our enemy. There's no questioning it. When you question, you die.
Yeah.
But that's not the thing here. Like it's safe here. And that's what I've been trying to like let my family know. Like, no, like it's okay to be wrong. Like you needed that structure there in that sense to survive. It's true. Like I'm not going to question that, but now you're not there. And that's what they don't understand is like, you're not there anymore. So you can start seeing these things for what they are. And if I have a few family members that start to see that too, they're like, you know what? Maybe you had a point.
There's been real studies about this saying that it has some benefits, right? To like if you're hurt, people that suffer seizures or like different medical conditions, right? Anxiety.
Yeah.
I remember seeing videos of, you know, families taking like a 2-year-old saying he had, you know, seizures every single time, and they took him different doctors, different things. They recommended a lot of medication. They couldn't figure it out. There was no hope. And then someone said, hey, you should try this, something with marijuana. And they're like, are you crazy? And then they tried it, dude, and the kid was fine, and that's what they do. And now they're like advocate for that, which is pretty interesting. I mean, I lost my point where I was going to, but does it have some benefits to your body?
Yes, it does. So it really does. So it really depends on like what you're taking too. So if you are taking it in the traditional sense, a combustible, you're getting all the, so it's not just THC. And even then, you're not even, what's affecting you is not really THC. So the reason you have to light it up and you can't just eat it is THC is just the beginning. It's what starts it. And so when you use that combustible, that flame, the heat turns it into THCA. It's also why you can't just like edibles, you don't just throw weed in there. You have to throw it in like some type of butter, some type of fatty, and the heat, it's called decarbing. And what the heat turns it from THC into THCA, and that becomes fat soluble. That's why you have to use butter or coconut oil when you're making edibles. And so I can't officially say this will do that, but what I can say is like a lot of like the herbal remedies, like, you know, like if you put lemon and ginger and stuff, it'll help you. It's those terpenes in those things that actually affect you and actually help you out medically. And so marijuana naturally has those terpenes. That's why you see strains named like gelato, biscotti, ice cream cake, white Tahoe cookies, you know, like all these things because they have similar terpenes that are found in those things. And so we can see from that part, yes, those things obviously have been proven in other things that are medically beneficial. But it's just so like we've only been like accepting of it for like maybe 40, 50 years, you know. 70s kind of changed a little bit, you know. People were like starting to smoke pot, but then we had that war on drugs. So it's really hasn't been for like the last like 30 years that we've started to see like real like medical research done on it. And there has been some stuff, but it's just like so early on, you know. And so now that we see like a push for it, for like multiple states have become legal, whether medically or recreationally, I think in the next 20, 30 years, we're going to see real hard facts about, hey, this actually, we've been sleeping on this for a while. It's been part of our ignorance not to legalize it. Part of it has been pharmaceutical companies understand that this could put potential pills out of their, you know, out of sale, you know. And so I think within like the 20, 30 years, we'll see like Kmart having some lower brands, or like Kmart or like Walmart, you know, some lower brands of like cannabis, not the highest quality, but they'll have some type of stuff like that. Because we already see CBD in certain stores. Like I was at Fred Meyer's, they have CBD lip balm, they have CBD tinctures.
They have those in coffee shops.
Yeah, they have them in coffee shops.
You go to Dutch Bros, you go to Bentley's, and.
But what is that though?
So CBD it's a cannabinoid, and so it is. I'm gonna be honest with you, like I know them by their acronyms. So like when you get me, like I think it's cannabinol. So it's a natural thing that grows in cannabis, but cannabis can also be hemp. So it's not just THC. And so the reason it's allowed to be sold in those is because it's hemp. The hemp has less than 0.5% of THC. Hemp is kind of like, it's like the sister plant. If you don't know, it looks exactly like marijuana, but it has little to no THC. And so what they can do is extract that from that. And now you have CBD this, CBD that. So it's not technically marijuana. So there's marijuana and hemp. And so they just extract that and put it in those products.
Yeah, because I've seen CBD oil, lotion, or some.
Have you seen the plants?
So I was getting to that. You know, so we play soccer, right? The Sunday league. We see some people with like a 1 or a gallon, and it's got the plants. I don't know if it's what plant it is.
So,
and it's all like water, and it's and then when you get hurt, they just pour it on you. And shit.
Solve, yeah. So you can if it's homemade, I can't tell you if it's THC or CBD, but so what they do is you can it's kind of like a form of tincture. Is you can put it in there, and so a lot of it's like alcohol based. And so if you put marijuana in, like let's say you put it in like Everclear or something like that, that's usually how people make homemade tinctures. And so if you just leave it in a dark room, essentially that alcohol is going to absorb all that THC, all the CBD, and all those terpenes, and you can take little droplets of it. It tastes horrible when you do it that way, but it's strong, and you can actually absorb through the skin that way. So people with injuries, they'll put it on, and it helps. It's kind of like best way to describe it for me personally would be like kind of like an icy hot. Like you just put the pomada, and it helps with the swelling. And
so
whatnot.
fancy vaporub.
So I seen the pomada. Like someone had the pomada, and then my girl, when she had her like injury, she tried everything, and then her grandma sent her like a container, you know, I don't know what it is, marijuana, little hemp, or,
Yeah.
and then she just rubs it in, dude. Yeah, you have to massage it a little bit, yeah, and then it helps, but I mean, it doesn't. It's
No,
just like it's just like anything, right? It's like icy
exactly.
hot or whatever it is, but
Mhm.
it's interesting, dude. In soccer fields, you see people just carrying that 1 gallon ahí. Yeah, dude, and
Yeah.
they just pour it. Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. They're like, oh, you're good. You're good. I'm like, oh, I guess.
It helps out a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have some of it too. And like, you know, I'm a bigger guy. I'm trying to cut down. So when I go to the gym, like these things, they flame up like grapefruits. And I put some on sometimes. Sometimes I'm a little lazy. I just smoke some weed.
Yeah.
Just like I don't want to put it on. Just let me just get a little high.
Exactly.
But yeah, I gave it to my mom. She has problems. She has like those spider veins in her legs, and she had 2 knee surgeries as well, orthoscopic knee surgeries. And it's funny. She'll put it on, and she says it takes away her pain completely. But you know, she's an OG. You know, she's I just don't want to get addicted. You're not getting addicted.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like, there's no chemically in THC. There's nothing addictive about it. Like, you can get addicted to weed the same way you can get addicted to burgers, chocolates, whatever.
Anything.
You know? It's a personality thing that gets you.
That's what it is, right? Because what do you say to the people that say, you know, and you see this everywhere, and I don't know if it's just, you know, but they say the marijuana is the gateway drug.
It is a gateway drug for sure if you already have that personality. If you have no self-discipline and you're going to marijuana, yeah, you're going to jump to other things. But if you have that self-discipline, which a lot of people do have, you can help it. Like the people that like start with marijuana and get into those other drugs, they were going to find it anyway. You know, they were going to get into it some way, and they were going to discover this. And whether or not they started with marijuana, it wasn't going to matter, you know? And so a lot of people, like, I'll be real, they do try marijuana, they try other things, but the ones that like actually like have control of it, they usually stick to just marijuana. Like me personally, like when I was in college, you know, I first started smoking marijuana, and then I started drinking, you know, like college kids do. And, you know, obviously you go to parties and people are going to offer you things, and, you know, like that's why I think it's best, like when it comes to stuff like this, like alcohol, marijuana, and all these things, it's best to talk about it, because I don't know about you guys, but growing up with a Latin mom, she's going to lie. Si fumas, te mata. You know, that's it. There's no question. Like, you have premarital sex, you're going to get her pregnant, and then you guys are both going to get AIDS, you're going to die. You know, it's just the whole thing. And so when you go out there, you know, I'm finding out, oh, hey, marijuana is not going to kill me. Oh, shit, what else isn't going to kill me? You know? And so I did go into a little, like, trying things that were offered to me, but it never, like, maybe it's just me personally, I never got addicted to anything. And honestly, nowadays, like, don't get me wrong. If it's like a planned event and there's like a party, like, a la verga, let's go drink, you know? But after that, I'm like, 2 weeks of only smoking. Don't talk to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to elevate my feet.
Yeah.
Like, I'm chilling. Like, no.
I think you're right, dude. I mean, I honestly, they always say that, but you pointed out, I think you're right. See, I think this vicio, if you're that type of person, eventually you're gonna do that. Because you always look at people saying, "Oh, I did it, and then I went somewhere else." It's typically porque ya tienen algo que, you know, they're chasing. But I don't know.
Yeah, it really is the person, right? And so it's also like, what also can be a contributing factor, and this is unofficial, of course, is like your endocannabinoid system. So I talked about that earlier. So the endocannabinoid system is a part of your brain, the receptors in your brain that handle THC, CBD, CBG, CBN. Those are the cannabinoids that really affect your body. And so if you're someone where those are already weakened, you're going to want something that hits you stronger. So someone might smoke weed and be like, man, this ain't it. Let me go find something else. They're already looking for something else because that's not hitting them strong enough in the way that they're looking for. There's something inside them that needs that substance in order to keep going. And so they start obviously with weed because it's the most accessible. And then they're already on their mission to find something hard hitting, something strong. It was going to happen either way. And so marijuana just becomes the easy scapegoat because it's easy and accessible.
Yeah.
And it's easy because the reason it became illegal was because black jazz musicians like smoking it. And also hemp is way stronger paper and material than trees were. And I don't know if you guys know this, but William Randolph Hearst, one of the biggest newspaper guys, he had a total monopoly on paper, trees, lumber industry. So when that happened in like the 30s, obviously that's where I don't know if you guys have seen that famous like movie. It's like super old, super funny if you're a stoner. It's like Reefer Madness. That's where that came from, this huge ad campaign to make it illegal. Because it was like, oh, if you smoke drugs, like if you smoke weed, like you're gonna kill people, you're gonna have like premarital sex, you're gonna do this. And I'm like, man, where was the premarital sex? Like I'm waiting for it. Like where is it? Like I was promised this. Like, but no. But it's literally you're already looking for it. It's my personal opinion. Like you already had that mindset of like you're not doing it because you want to try out weed. You're doing it because you're looking for that high, and marijuana high might not be enough for you. So you got to keep going. For me, I just sit back, I watch some funny shows, order too much food. That's it. You know.
Yeah. Is it still? There still hasn't been any deaths with marijuana, right?
So the deaths that have been associated with it have been, I heard of one guy, and I don't know if this is true. I think he smoked like 1,000 joints, but even then it was a carbon monoxide poisoning that killed him. And there have been like, if you overdose yourself on cannabis, like it's not going to kill you, but it is wildly uncomfortable. Like it feels like you're going to die. And if anything that kills you, it's the anxiety. It's your heart rate going up, just like, cause I'll tell a personal story. I made edibles for the first time myself. I usually just bought them off friends. So I didn't know the ratio. So I bought like one of those small like coconut oil things. So I heard coconut oil is more fatty, it's healthier, and because of the fattiness in it, it's actually better for edibles because THCA, which is what you convert the THC into, it's fat soluble, and that if there's a lot of fat in that coconut oil, so you're gonna get most of that THCA. You're gonna get almost all of it. But I had put too much weed compared to coconut oil in it, so I put like 2 ounces of what's called shake, which is like essentially the trimmings of the plant, because it comes with todas las hojas, and you gotta trim it up, and like those trichomes fall off a little bit, the leaves fall off. They have like, if like the plant has like 30% THC, the leaves have like maybe 14, like 10 to 14. So you can still make edibles off of it. And so I just put 2 ounces, not knowing, to like this small cacharro of like coconut oil. And it was like dark green, like it looked black. I'm like, maybe I burned it. Let me see if it's good. So I put a tablespoon. And I had some buddies that had like their medical license, like to grow and everything, get it tested. And I think I probably took around 1,500 milligrams of THC, which is the legal limit here in Oregon for like edibles. Like to sell you an edible can only have 100 milligrams. And even then, you eat the whole thing and you're just a novice, good luck. And so I ate the whole 15, not knowing, because I got a tablespoon. I'm like, this should be fine. I put it like on a piece of bread, put some jam and some peanut butter over it. It tasted gross because it just has that whole plant matter, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I remember I was seeing like, so when you get really high, you see like static, like TV static. I'm just like, oh my god. And I was living with some people that don't smoke at all. And I remember sitting in bed staring at their door like, oh my god, I might have to wake them up and have them take me to the hospital. Like, I can't believe I'm going to be the first one to overdose on weed. And I just kept staring at their door like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Like, this is not good. This is not good. And I just passed out and I was fine. I just woke up really high the next day.
I'll go down in history with this.
So like, there's no, like, in order to like die off THC intake, you have to take your own body weight in a span of like 15 minutes, which I don't know if you've seen what a pound of marijuana looks like. It's kind of a lot. And if you can smoke your own weight, like, it's just an impossibility. There's just no way. Okay. You know, like.
You can try that?
Nah, man, I don't think so. Nah.
I got close once. So we got this like little, we had watched a video of this on YouTube. And this was back when I was like 21 living with some friends. And so we had seen that they got like, those like blowers to like inflate like mattresses and stuff. They had like put like a piece of foil paper and just like put like a bowl and just turned it on and it just shoots out smoke. So I'm like, fuck it, let's try it.
Yeah.
Never again will I do that. I was like my face turned purple, like,
Yeah.
no, and we put like 3 grams, which is kind of a lot to take all at once, and just, it's just in like, I say that because it's so impossible
Yeah.
to get like die off like a THC intoxication. Like you can get pretty close. Like you can be like, you guys, I don't ever want to be high again.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that happen to people where it's just like, oh man, I feel bad. This is terrible for you right now.
Yeah.
But
Didn't that happen to you, dude? Or what
Yeah.
was it? Energy drinks?
Yeah, let's go.
Oh,
with
it's energy drinks, huh?
Yeah.
those actually can. Those actually can, because that's a lot of caffeine making your heart go boom, boom, boom. Those can stop it, yeah.
How much weed do you think Wiz Khalifa and Snoop Dogg consume in a day? Because I think those are like the 2 main like potheads and like that are like famous, right? Like they even have like blunt.
Yeah.
They have like people on payroll to make them blunts throughout the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they do.
Like, have
They
full-time
do?
roles.
Holy
Yeah,
shit.
They pay 'em
ain't
like
messing
15
around, dude.
Yeah, they pay them good too.
Yeah.
Full benefits, like 60 to 70 a
dude.
year.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Your job is just to roll blunts.
Yeah.
my-
all day.
Trust me, they put him to work though, because those guys, like Wiz Khalifa, has his own set of grows. Like he just got into the Oregon market. Like there's this dispensary called Khalifa. Of course, he's gonna go there, and so he has access to a lot, and he can waste out a lot in his own grow and be like, I'm gifting myself these pounds. So he has access to a lot of marijuana. So I would say they go probably through a pound a day. But if I'm going to be honest with you, and this might just be me being cocky, I was like watching how much they smoke, and they're not really into extracts. They do obviously, because it's like the weed game. Like if you smoke enough weed, you're like, well, let's try some oils, let's try some edibles. But they're mostly like blunt guys. I think I could outsmoke them.
I was watching an interview and they weren't there, but they were talking about them and they were saying that like Wiz has his one like strand of weed, but that's all he smokes. So like yeah, he can smoke a lot because his resistance to it is like super high because that's all he smokes. He doesn't smoke anything else. When they give him something else, like he gets high as hell. So I think that has a lot to do with it too.
So
Just the
it's
resistance to his own.
Yeah. So what it is so in cannabis, there's like 3 major things that affect, or 4. So it's the THCA, the CBG, CBD, and CBN. So CBG and CBN are the main differences between an indica and a sativa, right? So if you have more of an indica, you're gonna have more CBN. So it's gonna be sleepy, it's gonna make you hungry, it's gonna relax you. While CBG is gonna be more like uplifting, more energetic, more like energetic in quotation marks, because it's not like you run a marathon. Some people do, but like, no.
It's no pregame before
Yeah,
the gym.
it's definitely no pregame. And so when you smoke the same strain over and over again, your body gets used to that, right? Those levels. So, okay, my body's getting this much CBG, this much CBN, this much THC, right? And so when you mix others, your body's not prepared for that. So it's like, oh shit, this might have more CBN. Now I'm sleepy. I'm not used to these levels of CBN. Oh, I'm not used to these levels of CBG. Now I'm like looking out the window, super paranoid, like what's going on, And so that's why I try and branch out. Like I do only smoke the flower that comes from my company because there's really no reason. Like we have a bunch of different strains. We come out with new stuff. I have certain strains that I just love that I like always pick up on, but like I branch out. So yeah, they smoke a lot because it's the same thing. They know what they're getting. There's no differences, and they just smoke blunts. It's like you're getting like, so if something's like 30%, after like they're burning it down to THCA, they're getting like 26%, and it's just the same thing. It's like if you just drink nothing but tequila, the same tequila, you drink another tequila, it might get you more drunk than that bottle before. So it's the same concept. Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit. So you were talking about your company. Talk about the name of your company and what you do.
So I represent 3 farms as a sales rep and 1 extraction company. So I'm wearing the shirt right now. It's Current Mood. We are a rosin company, but we have 3 farms. So we are Wyconish, which is the main one, Arcadia, which is our growing one, which is actually coming out with good flower, And then we have an Evil Woman one, which was like a greenhouse grow. So it's growing a little bit different. You're using sun, you're using a hoop house, you're not doing full blown outdoor, but we do have an indoor facility there for that as well, so we can go all year round. And so we have two locations that are big warehouse grows, and then we have an outdoor grow out in Hood River. And so it really depends on like the quality, just because the outdoor grow, like we have those guys out there in Hood River, they're not coming to Portland. They're staying out there. They're doing the best they can. They're coming out with some quality stuff, but when you do outdoor, it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little bit fluffier. It's not going to be as cosmetically pretty, like indoor, because you're controlling the environment of an indoor, compared to our indoor where we can control it. We know exactly 8 weeks it's done. It's ready to go. It looks frosty. It looks good. You know, you can control those schedules because you're controlling the environment. So we have some pretty good flower, and we're trying to get our name out there a little bit. We do have some stores in here. So if you guys are listening and you guys want good weed, go to Eden. I got to plug them.
Where's Eden?
Eden, it's right on Portland Road. So it's kind of close to like that Dutch Bros and that Subway down there, kind of yeah.
That new
Dutch
spot.
Bros Subway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the new Subway where Chiva used to work. Over by Rothside GA.
The new apartment complex.
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's like a
Oh,
76
right
gas
off the
station
highway,
right
right off the highway,
there.
I-5.
Right behind it. Yeah, right off I-5.
Harbor Freight, dude.
Oh, there.
Yeah, right by the Harbor
okay,
Freight,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Dude,
shit,
you're
yeah.
slacking today, son.
I know.
And so the one thing that like I got really excited about was, I think like 2 years ago now, we started what's called a rosin. So rosin is a form of extraction, but it's completely solventless. So it's not like most extracts like sugar wax or shatters, which are going to use like a closed loop BHO system in order to extract it. There's no solvent. So what it is we take the flower either fresh or we take the trimmings, and we do what's called an ice bath. So we get we have these little, like, they look like washing machines, and they're just filled with ice water. And so what that does is you throw the product in there, and so the trichomes, which are the crystals on the outside, they have like a different freezing temperature than the plant itself. And so what you do is it's called a wash, and you just spin it around and you go through these micron bags, so these mini bags. And so all the water goes through, and the only thing that's left is like this, like, it looks like peanut butter. Like there's like little like goop type stuff, and that's just going to be straight THC, CBD, the trichomes and the terpenes and everything. And so what you do there, you scoop that up, you freeze dry it, and then you put it what's called in these like little rosin bags, and you use a heat press. And like most people use like 185. And so what it does is it melts the THC crystals and those terpenes, and it turns it into like essentially what's like a goo. And so it's called dabs. And so then you cold cure it, and what chemically happens is after you heat that up and turn it into that and ball it up, it cures into become one thing, like one dab that you can then sell and either put in edibles, or me personally, I dab it because the whole point of doing that is you're getting those fresh terpenes, because when you cut down the plant, the terpenes start to die. That's why when you see older weed, it's going to be more brown. It's not going to have as much green. It doesn't really taste that good, but it's going to be a smoother smoke. It's going to be higher in CBN, because when THC gets older, it deteriorates into CBN. But when you do the rosin, you're getting that fresh, like, you take all the plant matter away, you're just getting those terpenes and the THC. So it's like, I've had certain types of rosin that they taste like candy. Like, I mean, to other people it might be different because they're not used to smoking, flower or anything like that, or marijuana in general. So they're just going to taste weed. But as someone who's like a connoisseur, smoked a lot, it's like the freshest way and probably the healthiest way to smoke an extract. It's completely solventless, no BHO. Honestly, I love it. And so we do that a lot, and it's kind of hard right now because a lot of people, they don't understand the market, because this market in Oregon, it is one of the toughest markets for marijuana, because there is no limit on licenses, no limit on how many people can be either retailer, wholesaler, distributor. They just did not put a limit. So everyone's fighting for sales. There's 1,000 dispensaries out there. They change their name like every 2 months. farms as well, just because you need a good sales team, you need good marketing, because every time I go in for a meeting, depending on the week, there's probably like 3-4 people outside waiting before I get in there just to meet with this dispensary. You look at the dispensaries, the ones that make, good money, that are kind of well known, they have like 1,000 products in there, all different names. So it's hard. Like we try and keep it competitive. So where most rosin for you guys would be anywhere between like $40 to $60 a gram, because it is, you're only, when you do that rosin, when you make that rosin, you're getting anywhere between like a 3 and like a 7% yield on that. So you're losing a lot of like weight, but it's going to be stronger. So it's going to be more expensive. But, with weed being as cheap as it is because of that market, because of the over fluctuation, we're starting to price it anywhere. Like, I think you can go to our stores and get like good rosin anywhere between like 20 to like $30 a gram, which is unheard of in rosin, because everyone's trying to keep rosin at those prices, because that's kind of like their saving grace. Like, okay, our pounds went from like 2,700 in 2020 when everyone was buying weed, everyone couldn't leave their house. But now that we hit this big like inflation last summer, and now no one's smoking as weed, everyone's going out, no one's scared to stay inside, so no one's buying as much weed because they want to go out. We just hit this like tank in the market. So right now, I think we're selling like pounds are going anywhere between like, the lowest I've heard is like 150 to like, I think the most I've heard is like 2,200, and 2,200 used to be the standard, like 2,200 minimum. Now it's like, if you get 2,200, you're a hell of a salesperson. Like,
with how much, dude, he's a good salesperson, dude.
Yeah, well, with how much like cheap cannabis there is out there, if you're selling for 2,200, you have your Instagram on point. Like, everyone knows your name. Like,
gotta be
good on. Yeah, good on. It'll take a while. That doesn't happen overnight.
Oh, go ahead.
That's crazy, because I remember back when I was in high school, do we be buying ounces for like $240, $260?
Yeah.
And then now you walk by any dispensary and they have sales for $40 an ounce.
I was at, so one of my
$20 an ounce.
One of my major accounts that I talked to, they're down in Grants Pass, and they're really good people. If you're ever in Grants Pass, stop at their dispensary, Bud Superstore. When I first met with them, I didn't think they were going to buy from us, because we're mid to like top level cannabis in our pricing, and I think it's worth it, me personally. But I didn't think they were going to buy from us, because I went in and the first thing I saw on their wall was like $12 ounce special. And I'm like, what?
$12 ounce
$12
special?
ounce special.
Jeez, yeah, you go check them out.
I was like, I don't even want to see what that looks like. Yeah. I was just like, that is probably old and brown, and they probably got it for about $50 a pound. So I was like, all right, I was like, you know what? Let's see what I can do. And they do buy. They have really good cannabis, but like, that's just where the market is. Like, it's just, there's so much unsold cannabis that so many farms are just like going under, and they're just not able to compete. They have to like, there's just so much, and so many people just aren't buying, And so like, a lot of what I hear is like, I'll go and like, hey, you guys ready to buy? And they're like, we just don't have the business like we used to. And so a lot of like these companies are starting to go under, and there have been a lot of bad actors. I'm not going to name them personally. If you follow cannabis, you know who I'm talking about. I'm not going to get into it, and then they hear this, and then all of a sudden I'm getting sued for libel. But there are a few dispensaries that are kind of like dispensaries and grows that are kind of known for like not paying their bills, because there's so much regulation on like how to like give marijuana and how to like sell it, but there's no regulation on like how to collect the money. Like, even us, we have some certain companies, again, not going to name them, that owe us a lot of money. Mm-hmm. That owe us like somewhere in like the 50 grand type. And it's like, there's a few dispensaries that have gone under because of that. And so it's just really hard, because either people aren't paying their bills, or they're just not buying, or you just you're spending money in sales or marketing, because you have to find any sale underneath any rock you can find, because there's so much competition. It's so hard.
Do they dispensaries? Do they make money? Like, I mean, I feel like I see them in every corner nowadays.
So certain ones do. So and they certain ones will hit a certain market, right? So certain ones will be known as like bougie. Like our prices are going to be a little bit higher, but our products are going to be excellent, you know? And then there's ones that like hit their target market. They're like, we're going to have a little bit of that, but we also have a lot of discount stuff. And there are ones that, yeah, not going to name them. It's just kind of known like, you guys do not have good flower. You guys just go for the cheapest of the cheap. You lowball all your vendors, and for those who go buying weed, they're gonna know who I'm talking about by me saying this. So most dispensaries will have like a jar where you can check it out, and that's a great thing about Oregon markets, because I've been everywhere else and everything's prepackaged, so you can't see it like before you buy it. And that's a good thing about Oregon is like you can go to a dispensary and be like, let me check out that strain. You can't touch it, but you can smell it. You can take a look at it. And you can watch them weigh it out. So you know if you're getting an eighth, you're getting 3.5. This dispensary gives them in glass jars. They say they're 3.5, which they probably were when they first weighed it out. But they're not accounting for moisture loss, which happens a lot with cannabis. So if you weigh it at home, it could be like, promise 3.5, you're probably looking at like 3.2, 3.1. And so they're kind of known for being like, if you don't have a whole lot of money, you can still get high there. And it's not quality stuff. It's not like the highest market. It's more just like what they can afford, or not even that, just like what they want to pay for that. So that way they keep their profit margins pretty high. But even then, like if you go with a connoisseur, they're going to be like, don't go there. Don't stop there. Like, I know another place. Like, keep going.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like dispensaries do make money. The ones that like don't make money that I've seen, they'll just like see a cheap product and they won't check sales reports. You know, they're just like, this is going to sell because it's selling right now. Let me buy like 100 of these, like 100 of these joints, 100 of these cartridges. And then like the marijuana market, because there's so much in it, it's finicky. You know, it could like one strain could be super popular for like 2-3 months. All of a sudden people are like, what else you got? And now you're sitting on like 100 pounds that you grew of this certain strain, and now you're having a hard time to sell it. So the dispensaries, like the ones that kind of like go under, they do stuff like that. Or they don't pay their nets. They don't advertise properly, and people don't go there enough, and they just die off. They don't have any quality, so the only people that are going in there, they're spending like maybe $10 at a time, if that. So you got to have like, for dispensaries, you have to meet in the middle. You have to have the higher quality for those who want to buy like a little bit more, but you also have to understand that like, especially in like certain areas, like we need to have this lower end stuff for these people that need these sales, because the majority of it is going to be those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like it is what it is.
Yeah, there always has to be something for two different markets. What makes I guess flower good, or what makes something good? Like when you smoke it, like what makes it good?
So it's a few things. So for me personally is I can tell. So when you chop down marijuana, you have to give it like what's called a flush. So you're hitting it with nutrients, especially if you're doing in the hydroponic sense. You're not using, which a lot of indoor farms do because it's just easier. It's cheaper. Live soil, it might be quote unquote better depending on who you ask. Me personally, hydroponic is easier because what you're doing when you're doing the live soil is you're making sure those nutrients are there, that you just have to water it and give it nutrients like every so often. But with hydroponic, you just create like fake soil. Like we use buffered cocoa. So it's like kind of in the middle between soil and hydroponics. Some hydroponics will just have the root growing in water, and like it's called rock wool. So it just lets the roots grow, and you have to give it nutrients every day. So if you don't give it what's called a flush, it's going to taste like nutrients. It's going to taste pretty poorly. So you have to have a good flush so that way it tastes good. You have to make sure you're on top of pruning. You're on top of de-leafing. You need to make sure that it's getting sprayed, because a big problem in this industry is bugs. And certain bugs can actually go and attack the growth root. It can look super pretty, but it'll attack essentially where the terpenes are growing, and so now you got flavor of the sweet. So you really got to be on top of pesticides, because if you get certain pesticides, it's gonna taste bad. Like a big thing that's used in the cannabis industry is sulfur. If you use sulfur at any point in the like bloom process, because it goes from most people they chop it down from what's called a mother, where they keep it in a vegetative state. They cut it off from the growth node, and it's essentially a new plant, a clone of it, right? So you'll start that in the vegetative state, and people might hit it with sulfur. If you hit it with sulfur at any other point between then, you're going to taste sulfur. And I don't know if you guys have smelled sulfur. It tastes horrible. Like certain extractors will not buy any type of plant that they use sulfur in the process. So if you use sulfur, like it's going to solve your problems, but quality-wise, it's going to taste pretty poorly. And just honestly, general maintenance of the plant, you know, making sure the lights are hot enough, making sure they're not too close to the plant, making sure the distance is good, making sure that, you know, you're pruning the bottom of it, because you are going to have certain branches that are going to be under too much, and the big nugs are not going to be focused on as much because the plant is wasting that energy. Because what you're doing essentially with this style is you're killing all the males because you don't want them to focus on seeding. And so it's a process called lollipopping. So you're forcing the plant essentially to kill itself and not focus on reproducing. That's why they're all marijuana plants that you see with nugs, they're all females. They're all ladies. And so what you do is you create this bottom space so that way breeze can get in and you get the stalk to be strong, and it's not wasting its time growing little small nugs. It's just focusing on the big boys, and you just essentially just keeping the light cycle on it makes sure that it's like focusing on like creating big, strong, powerful nugs. So it's really just proper maintenance, proper feeding schedules, making sure sticking to those feeding schedules, because marijuana is a very sensitive plant. It can go super healthy 1 hour, the next hour, you're fucked. Like, it's just keeping on schedule.
Is it true that Washington, Oregon, and Northern Cal have the best soil for this, or is this just?
Yeah, it's pretty true. It's just the temperature. It's not too hot. The soil's great. We have plenty source of clean water, and the people around Northern California, Southern Oregon, Washington, they've kind of honed in on what they're doing. So the best cannabis is going to come from this area. We're essentially like Napa Valley of cannabis. And we have cheap product, great quality, and it's just people that just know what they're talking about. And the market, like I said before, like the market, you can look at what you're buying before you buy it. Not so much in California and Washington. Everything's kind of prepackaged. But here in Oregon, you can definitely look at what you're buying. You can see, you can smell it, and it's going to taste exactly how it smells. So it really is like the best place to buy. Because I was in Vegas recently, and I kind of have a like little thing where I want to buy in every state where it's legal. I won't do it in Vegas because it's just wildly expensive, because they have to import water because there's no water there. So that's a water cost. They have to make sure it's not too hot because it gets like up to like 110 over there, and the plants will die. They'll singe. So you have to maintain that temperature between like 98 or whatever. And so then you have to get fans. That's an electricity cost. Now you have no soil out there. So you're either going to do hydroponic, which means you're going to have to give it nutrients every day, which means that's another cost. Or you're going to have to import soil, which is an even higher cost. So the cost of marijuana out there is pretty high, and it's pretty hard to like do it out there and make it quality than it is over here. So over there, it's more just like numbers.
You can't grow in one state and sell in a different state, right? From a legal state to a different legal state.
So there have been, I think, I heard this a while ago. I think Oregon, California, and Washington kind of signed a pact that they can sell legally between each one. The problem with it is it's still federally illegal. So the moment you cross over there and they see those transactions, the federal government will be like, absolutely not. And they'll come down on you. They are not scared to come after you because that's tax money. So they'll just be like, oh, really? No. Even though it's legal in between each state, they won't allow it. And that's why I think there's more push. Like I'm seeing more push in like Congress to kind of become federally legal because Oregon would blossom. The amount of cannabis we have here would supply so many states, whether it's medical or legal. And it would just, I think they're starting to get like the knowledge of like, oh, hey, there's a lot of tax revenue in this. My cousin's a sheriff in Colorado, and he gets a $700 check every year from the cannabis market. Now, it doesn't seem like much, only $700, but then you have to think that's going to every first responder, every nurse, every doctor, every sheriff, every cop, every marshal. They're all getting $700. How many of those people are in Colorado? A lot.
What's the check for?
Just residuals from cannabis.
To anybody that works as a first responder. Dang.
Yeah. So it's making a lot of money. It's essentially just to be like, all that money's being funneled.
No,
I don't think so.
I don't think it, I don't know.
I haven't asked her.
He's hustling you with $700.
Where's that $700?
Yeah, he told me, he's like, yeah, I get a $700 check from cannabis like every year. I'm like, no shit. Like, I don't know how Oregon does it. Obviously, I see like there's a lot more schools, like bigger and better schools since legalization. You know, like I live in Beaverton, and like if you drive by like Mountainside in Beaverton and like Sherwood High School, you're like, oh my God, is that a high school or is that a university?
Yep, for sure.
You're just like, oh my goodness. And that's all, like part of it's all cannabis money that's just going towards that. So I think a lot of states, like I've been talking to a lot of insiders just because I have some buddies that grow in South Dakota, California, and New Mexico. And like, I think what they're starting to see is like one big thing that happened in Texas, of all places, is in the House, the state House, they decriminalized it. And so now it's going to the state Senate. And if it passes there, you see decriminalization in Texas, which is enormous. It is a huge move. In Mississippi, they're actually doing real like government-sponsored tests on cannabis. Mississippi. I think Alabama's still on the, we're not. No. Like, no, there's no way. But I think everyone's starting to see that we're struggling economically as a country. You know, we're all trying to get back from like COVID. It hurt a lot of people. And economically, it kind of brought us down, especially with all those stimulus checks. Like, there's a lot of like, we're in a lot of debt as a country, and they're starting to see, oh, cannabis might help out with this. So I think there's like a big push to make that federally legal so that way we can get that revenue going.
What do you think of the people that are doing time for selling weed in small amounts?
If you're still in jail for cannabis, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, so there's this association called, it's like the Last Prisoner Project. They're big on like they're a nonprofit organization that's essentially going out for people that are still in cannabis, like they're still in jail for cannabis. I think Biden actually just pardoned almost everybody, but I think there are still people that they're in there for like violent crimes on top of the cannabis. But it's very unfortunate because a lot of them are minorities, and it kind of seems like an injustice because it's like, well, you know, a lot of them had to do what they had to do, you know, like as a Latino, I see that like we're very disadvantaged, and, you know, it's kind of what's destroyed our countries, right? Is the fact that there's no opportunities. People here in America, they just see, oh man, how could they get into it? But they don't understand, like when you have nothing else, absolutely nothing else, and you got to feed your family, of course, this now has like, this drug industry has a like billion dollar potential to feed your family. You're not thinking about, well, it's only going to last for like 5-10 years before I either get killed or go to jail. You're thinking 5-10 years of feeding my family. And so it's very unfortunate to see those people in jail, but I mean, there's organizations trying to get them out.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, how do you think they feel, dude? Just
that'd suck, dude. Knowing that there's legal drug dealers now.
yeah,
and they're like, still locked up. Yeah, that sucks.
I am technically a legal drug dealer.
Kim K's fighting for him, dude.
Who?
Kim K.
Yeah, Kim Kardashian.
She's the main lawyer, dude.
She's
a lawyer.
Shit, she can be my lawyer.
Yeah,
goddamn.
the fuck she do be a lawyer?
Dude, she's got what do you call it? She's a jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when you're that Instagram famous, you can do whatever the fuck you
Yeah, I
want.
was gonna say.
Yeah,
Like,
she got Biden to sign off on all those people.
yeah.
Shit, that's his
If,
homie.
if
That's
I
his
if
homie.
I were
Yeah,
the
dude.
president too, I'd be
Yeah.
like, "What, Kim K? What
Interesting.
laws you want? I'll get them done."
Yeah.
Yeah, come,
Yeah. Hell yeah.
come here, come here, come here. Yeah, come here. Yeah, what you want, girl? Yeah, she's trying, and like it's just really hard because a lot of those like convictions, they put other things on them, right? Just to make sure they stay in jail. And so a lot of those people, they might have had their like cannabis charges dropped, but then they have like weapons charges and violence crime charges, but they don't understand like that all came from cannabis. Like they had to, like what else are they gonna do? Like just be your friendly neighborhood weed dealer? Like that's only an Oregon thing.
Yeah.
Like over there, like in places where it's super illegal, like yeah, you're gonna have to protect your shit because people are coming after you. Like marijuana is a safe game in the states where it's legal, but where it's super illegal, like 1 gram gets you to jail. Like yeah, it's gonna be a little bit violent.
Yeah. A question: What do you think about the edibles they sell, like the candy in the dispensaries? Are they like legit, or is it just
So they're legit.
kind of like all the scraps or whatever, and like let's just fucking make something?
So what they do when it comes to the edibles is they'll use what's called a distillate, and so it's essentially pure THC, and so it's essentially like an oil. It's why they don't taste that great because it's literally just pure THC extract. It's probably gonna be at like 99%. If you want cheap, go for that because it's gonna get you high. I don't personally like them because when you smoke marijuana, yes, THC is a psychoactive part, but if you don't have those terpenes, it's just going to overload your cannabinoid receptors and like you're going to get really high, but you might feel uncomfortable and it's definitely going to hurt your head afterwards. You need those terpenes to kind of ease it in. So me personally, I've been kind of moving towards what's called the rosin gummies. So instead of using like that distillate, certain companies have used like their rosin, which is the solventless extract I was talking about earlier. And so it's an all natural high. You throw it in there, you still get those terpenes, you still get that THC, but it's like a more natural high. And you feel better. Like I took there's this company called Drops. They've recently started using live rosin in their edibles, and like it tastes pretty planty, but it gets you really high. It's more of a cleaner high, and you don't get like a hangover from it. So with those like the cheap ones, you get like a little bit of a hangover. Your head will hurt afterwards. You're like, oh man, that was kind of a lot. With these ones, not so much. So it really depends on what you're looking for. Certain companies do a really good job at it, and they will be. If they say it's 50 milligrams, it's 50 milligrams. If they say it's 100, it's 100. They're pretty good on that. But the cheaper ones, it's you're getting what you buy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I heard that I don't know if this was only when edibles was first coming out, but they were really inconsistent. That some edibles you'd get super high, and then some of them would like have less.
Yeah, so it really depends. Like I think back then they were just they didn't have a proper recipe, so they're just putting in this amount of cannabis, and what they'll do is they'll either use like the coconut oil or they'll use the butter back then, and then just use it as a recipe. And there's no like for sure way. There wasn't like a for sure way of testing. Now we have like numerous tests to make sure it's right there. But back then in the early days, like we're just trying to get it figured out, like it was medical, but like even then most people medical, they wouldn't go to dispensaries, right? They would just have their growers. So when you're medical back in the day, you would have your medical card, and then you would have what's called a caregiver, and that caregiver would grow your weed, they'd give you weed, and they could sell to medical dispensaries. And so it was like it was kind of like the wild, wild west back then. Now we're way more regulated, so we can figure that out and we can hone it in. And people have their recipes down to like, this is how much THC. We already know it's going to be there. We get it tested. It's testing that much. And essentially just to make sure people don't get like, you're buying 100 milligram edible. All of a sudden you don't know it. It's 200 milligrams. And you're like, uh-oh.
1,500.
Yeah, 1,500. Exactly. Yeah.
And you gotta read the little package, dude. Servings too, man. Because I feel like a lot of people just take one or whatever, and then next thing you know, they don't feel anything. They take the whole thing, and they're in the hospital or calling the ambulance.
You talking from personal experience?
No, I just heard stories.
I'll tell you a personal story. So when I was giving my grandma, I was giving her edibles, but like I lived in Corvallis, she lived in Eugene. That's a 45-minute drive. I can't always be there. And so my older brother, Nelson, I gave him I told him, go buy this edible, but make sure it's like they're small, right? But
Yeah.
they have lines on them so you can cut them up.
There you go.
And I was
Yep.
like, don't give her the whole thing. He's like, no, I'm not in here, bro. Like, why do you say that? Like, of course I know that. He gives her the whole thing. And this is meant for like 8 to 10 people.
That's what I'm referring
Grandma
to.
did the whole thing?
She took the whole thing. Because he's just like, my brother can be pretty lazy sometimes. And he's like, I don't care. It's just like, Danny told me to give you this. Take it. It's for your pain. And so, like, an hour later, I'm getting a call from my dad. ¿Qué le dices a mi mamá? Like, what you do to my grandma? Like, she's out of control. I was like, oh, fuck. All right, I'll be there in an hour. Like, I'm on my way. And so she's just super loose. She's like, oh, my goodness. I'm like, all right. I'm like, all of you, stop screaming. You, Nelson, you fucked up. I told you, cut it up for her. She does not know what she's doing. Like, and I told my dad, you stop yelling. You're freaking her out. So literally, like, what I did, I gave her some food. She's so sweet and funny. She's like, I'm like, Lita, ¿quieres comer? And she's like, well, si tienes hambre, come vos, yo como lo que estás comiendo. I'm like, no, I'll get you food. Like,
Yeah.
I got her food. I played some jazz music. I put her to sleep. I'm like, this is all you needed to do. So it's really, you got to be careful because, like, she was high for a while. Luckily, I was there to calm her down. But, like, yeah, some people, they don't look. Like, you really need to look at the packaging.
Fucking Nelson, dude.
Yeah, Nelson.
Fucking
Come
Nelson.
on.
Yes. Tell him.
Well, that's the thing, dude. Because when I saw, I don't know what it says, serving or for how many people.
Serving size, yeah.
And it's like this small, but it's like it's got for 8 people or 10 or whatever the scenario is, and that's what I'm saying, dude. People just fucking take the whole thing.
So the reason they do that is because it's just cheaper to use the extract than to make coconut oil. But some people still do. I think Lori and Mary Jane's, I think they buy up bulk flour just to throw it in a vat with some coconut oil. But most people, they'll just use the distillate because it's cheaper and it's easier to access. So the distillate's going to be like 99%. So you put like a little gotita, that's 100 milligrams right there. So it's like, it's going to be small. That's why like those serving sizes, like they look very small, but it's 10 milligrams. Yeah, it's 10. It doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, dude, don't mess with that shit.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, we've bought in the dispensary, but we actually look at the package, dude. We're like, no, fuck that. And she's really, it's like, oh, it says you take one. I'm like, oh, what? This is fucking tiny, It's like, well, that's what it says. All right, fuck it, take one, whatever. But I like them. Cool, relax.
Yeah. Well, so like when you make the extract, right? So if you're doing like a distillate, you're gonna get like anywhere between like a 17 and a 14% yield. So that's really like you get 100 grams. You get 14 grams back, and you're thinking like this is nothing. It's small, but it's way stronger than those 100 pounds. Those 100 grams. And so like that's the same thing with the edibles. Like you bulk it down, you get the extract. So the amount you're taking is very, very small, but it's very, very strong. So it's got a lot of milligrams. And to put only like 50 to 100 milligrams in an edible, it's a small amount of extract. So those slices are gonna be thin.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little crazy.
No
but
joke.
Yeah, it is. It is no joke. Yeah.
What do you think of I don't know if that's the right word, the vape pens?
Oh, I keep those all the time.
You do?
Yeah. So
Is that oil or what is that? Is that
so it's extract? Yeah. So
Okay.
a lot of them are like live resin. And so what live resin is, it's still the closed loop system. It's a little bit higher quality because they're taking the plant fresh. So when it means live, it means they don't give it any time to cure. They chop it down and extract it right away. So that way that terpene file does not die. I have them personally because I drive quite a bit and like I have to stay professional. This is still the cannabis industry, but we're not all singing Kumbaya and getting high with each other. It's still a business. You still have to stay super professional. And so I have them sometimes during my drive. Like I'll hit them. I'm more of a flavor guy, the terpenes, because I know the terpenes. Actually, little known fact. So if you have a 30% flower with a 2% terpene rate and a 17% flower with a 5% terpene rate, that 17% will get you higher than 30%. So it's the terpenes make a big deal. And so they're just easy. They're convenient. So instead of like, you only need to take like 1 or 2 drags for you to get high, the same amount of high you would get from like a full joint. And so it's just convenience is what you're buying. You're buying more flavor, convenience. You have to hit less for a little bit. Obviously, when that's all you do, your tolerance gets pretty high. You know, that's the thing with extracts. It's easy to, you start off saying like, oh, I'm smoking too much flower. Let me switch to extracts. So that way, like, I get higher. And then quickly, you're smoking like a gram of oil a day. Shit. And just like, yeah.
Is that the same thing when you take is it wax or whatever the torch? Is it the same thing or?
No, so it's going to be like a lower quality and it's going to be mixed in with some stuff to make sure it's combustible when you use it. So that part, I don't know what they mix in with it because our company, they only do, as of right now, we're looking into cartridges, but it's going to be like a lower level quality of oil. It's still going to be pretty damn good, especially if it's live. But it's essentially just like a little mix of some stuff just to make it like able to vaporize and get high in your pen. So it's pretty similar. I think certain companies, it is just that, you know. But it's honestly the cartridges are more for convenience and flavor than anything else. Because you can get some pretty, what they'll have is like, I don't recommend these at all because they're super cheap. They're trying to like imitate like the vape cartridges, like the ones that like the kids are smoking. So they'll have what's called non-cannabis added terpenes. So instead of being a strain specific, they'll just be like, this is blueberry, this is raspberry. Do not buy those. They're horrible for you. Yes, you get the THC, but like I said before, it's at 99% THC, and those are non-cannabis terpenes. They're not meant to hit your endocannabinoid system. So you're still going to get that headache. It's going to taste pretty good, but it's going to be very, very low quality. So it's the same thing with any type of thing in the cannabis industry. You just got to look at what you're buying. Yeah. So
you ever judge people by their pens? Like, dude, let me see what you
got. No. I know I'm different. I know, like, I'm essentially, like, my job is to be a cannabis sommelier. So, like, for me personally, when I buy those cartridges, I always ask to look at the back because they have the terpene profile. So I'll know exactly what it tastes like. So if I'm looking at something, like, my top terpenes are going to be limonene, which is going to be lemony, myrcene, which is going to be sweet, caryophyllene is going to be a little bit peppery, and then like a little bit of terpenol, which is going to be like lemony, and like maybe a little bit of linalool. It's hard to pronounce these things, but linalool, it's going to have like a little bit of lavender. So I know what terpenes to look like. A little bit of humulene is going to have more like a hoppy taste. So those are more like what the terpenes I'm looking at. So I can like really like look at the back and I can tell what it's going to taste like. The ones that don't, just kind of have to trust the strain. Be like, all right, I have Purple Punch before. I know what this is going to taste like. But when it comes to judging people, I know what I know because I've worked in the industry for so long, and I know like the keywords, and like if you don't know, it's just more about like you just don't know, you know. If you know everything, like if I have a conversation with somebody like this, like and we're like back and forth, like talking, and I'm like, man, this guy knows what he's talking about. He must not have a lot of money. Like, I'm not going to judge them like those are cheap. Yeah. It's like more just like, oh man, you can't afford the good stuff. Like, here. I'm more just like, I'm more like, I'm here to educate more than like judge. Cause like, it's like the beer snobs, like, oh my God. Like, I would never drink that type of IPA. It's like, shut up.
That's him, dude. Yeah, he's a beer snob, dude.
Nah.
He's like, oh, Coors Light? Too light, dude. You need something stronger. Real men don't
We had Coors Light, dude. We had fucking Modelo Oro. That's like the light beer too, dude.
I'm a light beer kind of guy. I'm in college. I was more about chugging than flavor.
Yeah.
So now it's just like it brings me back. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
It's like tomando agua. It's like I'm still getting a little drunk, but it's easy to go down.
Agua fresca. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you guys have that's coming out this year, man? You guys have anything exciting
So
coming out?
we have a few strains that I'm pretty excited about. So I actually have this pen here loaded for you guys. So right now, this is a big strain that we've come out really good. It's called the Gelato Kush Mints. So it's the gelato strain crossed with the Kush Mints, which always comes out at like a high 30. This one's going to be, here, I'll turn this on for you guys.
Alan.
This is actually, it's going to be a little bit more like gassy with a hint of sweetness. And so this one's going to be really good. We have we cross what's called Future. So Future is kind of like a lemony strain. So when it vibrates, it's ready to go. All you got, no button to hit, you just inhale. So that's a dry herb vaporizer for those of y'all that are watching. So instead of so when you smoke weed, what you're doing is you're getting that heat to combust to turn it into THCA.
Yeah.
So what this does is it gets it to a certain temperature, and then it uses that hot air to turn that THCA. So you're essentially smoking hot air.
Try a little bit, dude.
Yeah. Did it vibrate?
Yeah,
it's ready to go. Yeah.
Try it. So one thing I don't smoke.
I don't
But
either.
you know, I mean, it doesn't.
Just take a quick draw.
Quick draw,
it's
dude.
That tastes like chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It tastes a little bit like chocolate. Yeah.
Yeah, it tastes like chocolate. Like cookies or something. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that gelato Kush Mints. Yeah.
Damn. You want to try it?
Yeah. Come take a hit.
Here, I'll
She's
pass
a
it to
real
the back.
smoker. She'll be able to.
Yeah.
She'll be able to judge this. Give us a.
It was a good.
Yep. Just inhale. No button to touch. Sometimes it might get a little clogged, so you got to hit it a little bit harder. There you go. I saw the smoke.
Let me see. Let me try. Still, is it still on?
Yeah. So it has a timer. So if you check the screen, it'll have a timer for how long it stays hot for. I think it's like a minute, but you can always like.
You taste it?
A little bit. I don't want to do it since I don't smoke.
Yeah.
I don't.
No. Yeah.
You know. Let's try it, dude.
We got a business we're running right now.
Yeah. For the camera. Yeah. Yep. It's still on. Yeah, still good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have a lot of like gelato crosses that we got that are coming out really good, and you know we've recently changed our style of growing. So we had this head grower that he grew good weed, but he didn't want anybody to know what he was doing, right? So he would train people, and it's like, don't ask me why, just do it, you know. And so he got let go. And so we found out the reason he did that was because he had a lot of bug problems that he was not telling us about, and a lot of like issues that like, it was essentially just like a house of cards that he left before it could all collapse. Right. And so what we tried for a little bit was, let's just have a bunch of people with experience grow. Everyone bounces ideas off. No one's in charge. We have a grow manager who's just going to do payroll and stuff like that. But we ended up losing a few plants, you know, people get a little careless. And so we got people with experience now. We've updated bulbs. We've changed feeding schedules. I can't go too much into it because it's like Coke. I can't give you, our recipe. And so we are coming out with like bigger nugs, more THC, more terpenes. And it's very evident. Like this stuff looks like it's like covered in crystals. And so like one of my favorite strains is we cross what's called a future, so it's a sativa hybrid. It's known to have more like limonene, which is like the limonene, and pinene, which so it's gonna smell like kind of like lemony pine sol. And we cross that with like what's a very famous strain called the Purple Punch, which is more fruity, a little bit peppery, but definitely like it comes out small, dense, and frosty, while the future comes out more like coney, big, yellow, like the orange hairs, not as frosty, but still like a good sativa strain. So we crossed that one, and it's just like the orange hairs pop out. It's got that light green, super frosty, and it tastes like those like lemon heads, like it's fantastic. And we're regaining our Purple Punch. Like we got a lot of stuff coming out. It's more about just us getting it tested and getting it out there. So we have like a Forbidden Runts. That's really good. So, we're getting it tested this week, but we have a strain of rosin that's we call it the Cherry Gary. So it's I think it's tres leches, if I remember correctly, mixed with a Gary Payton.
Yeah.
But I'd have to double check on that. We essentially just took those two strains and washed them together, and it's really funny. So whenever we get a new strain, I immediately call our rosin guy. I'm like, hey, man, what's new? And then he won't respond compliance will respond. And they're like, once it's tested, you can have a sample. It's like,
Dang.
stop pushing him. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not. I just want. But I got to smell it. I got to look at it because I can still look at it. And it tasted like, it smelled like cherry pie. I'm like, the second we get that test approval, because it has to pass the testing before we sample it out and everything and like sell it. I was like, you send that to my desk.
Who's the one that does the testing?
So we go through a company called Chem History.
Oh, so you guys don't in-house the testing?
No, we cannot. We have to outsource the testing. So there's certain accredited labs that are known for that. And so we have to go through them. And we cannot sell anything unless it's test pass, unless we're going wholesale. But even then, if a wholesaler comes and buys it, they still, before they send it to any dispensary, they have to get it tested.
That's a big business though, or no?
Huge.
Right?
Huge, because nothing can be sold to a consumer that's not tested. So if you have like, there's certain people that all they do is testing. And they have to. If you can get that accreditation and be like, we are a lab that you have to go through, they have to get tested. And so, because nothing can be sold, so they're pretty big business. In fact, we actually had so we tested so there's a new regulation. So I think it's called aspergillus. So if there's any type of aspergillus in your product, instant fail. Not like how much quantity, which is more found in like live soil. So we just had a huge like market crash because people like they tested for aspergillus, and now everything's unsellable. They can't sell any of it. So it's a really big thing too, because like a lot of farms, they went under or they found some way to sell it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna speculate how, but they found some way to get rid of it and get their money back. But it's not for me to say how they did it. But yeah, it's a big thing. Everything had like, it's super regulated. Everything has to have a test pass. Like I can, if we submit something for testing, I can take it out with me on my what's called a circular, where I pick a few stores, I put it into Metric. That's our tracking system. And when I go out and I have appointments, I can only go to those stores because they're on my paperwork. I can show it to them. I can't sell it to them until we get that pass result. So everything has to be tested. Even if we sample it, has to have testing. And we have to go through we go through Chem History just because they have a really good reputation of one, like being honest on their test results. We don't do terpene testing because it's not required. But it's probably looking that it will be soon, and so they're pretty timely on everything, and so we just want to make sure that like there's certain labs, I won't name them, that if you see their test results, some dispensaries will be like, no, you buy your test results, because I've seen certain strains of cannabis come out at like 37 to 40, and it's like no, no, you guys like either paid for it or they're just off, because there have been some strains that have reached that high, but if you reach that high, like 37, 40, you're going to be in high times, you know? And so if it's like a company that's like not that well known and all of a sudden they have like 37% THC, it's like, come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would be everywhere with that, you know? So we go through Chem History just because their reputation is really good.
Pretty good.
And we've never failed a pesticide test or anything. So, and our weed usually like, it's usually anywhere between like the mid 20s to like mid 30s. So we try and you kind of have to keep it there, because anything below that, they tend to be number chasers, just because legalization is so new. You know, 2015 was when we legalized like recreationally, and that's not a lot of time. So people are starting to get educated. It's why they're starting to learn about solventless extracts and starting to learn about cartridges and like edibles and stuff like that. But they see numbers, right? So they'll know the difference between sativa and indica. Sativa is going to make me stay awake. Indica is going to make me hungry and pass out. But there's not that much like knowledge within the consumer base. So a lot of people are looking for the high numbers, not understanding that a 17% with the high terpene rate is going to get you higher than that 30% with the low terpene rate. So, I mean, right now in the market, it's keeping it in the high 20s, mid 30s, but also making sure that in order to make your weed stand out, to have that terpene rate be pretty high. Like, I think like if you get 5% terpenes, like it's going to be pretty tasty. But like anywhere between like the 3 and 4% is where you want to be usually. And that's usually like, I can't say for sure, but like as someone who's tasting our cannabis, it's pretty close there. No.
So earlier, when we were off cameras, you were talking a little bit about how long you stay inside of a dispensary. For people that have never been into it, because I think it's pretty intimidating going into a dispensary when you don't know anything. What would you suggest to people? Like they go in, what's the first thing they should look for? What kind of questions should they be asking?
So it depends on the product you're looking for. If you are looking for flower, look at the color. So if it's going to be on the lower shelf, it's starting to brown. There's not a lot of crystals on it, like the trichomes on it. It's going to be cheaper. What you really want, it depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for like high top shelf, you're looking for, something, let's say you're looking for fruity, smell it. Always smell your flower because we're so lucky to be in a state where you can do that because everywhere else it's prepackaged, which makes it harder to buy as a consumer because you just got to trust it, right? So smell your flower because more likely than not, it's going to taste the way it smells. If you're looking for extracts, again, look at the terpene percentage because those usually tend to have a terpene profile, like anywhere between like 7-8%. Some getting at like 12. Those 12s, buy. If it's like at like 69%, but like 12 to 14% terpenes, it's gonna taste fantastic. You're not gonna know that if you're like just a regular consumer, you're not gonna know you're gonna smoking weed, and it's gonna get you really high. So just look for terpenes, look for the quality. Like look at the nug itself, because if it's very thin, it's like little popcorn nugs and there's a big stem. You don't really want that. You're not going to get a lot of it. That's the thing about the buying like the top shelf is you're getting more of a stem weight, which you got to be careful for. That's why like when I was a bud tender, I would recommend what's called B buds, like the smaller buds. I would tell them if as long as this is fresh, you're getting more bang for your buck because if you look at them, there's no stem in there. It's literally off the stem. You're getting all the meat, is how I describe all the meat, and you're getting more flower than you are stem. So really look at those big nugs that people like really desire. What they don't see is it's a group of little nugs with one big stem right down the middle. So really look at your bud. Like if you see if you look at the bottom of the stem is like really thick, like that thick, you're probably getting a lot more stem than anything else. So just really like look at it, look at the quality, smell it, and just, kind of like know your basic terpenes. Like you don't need to really know like terpenol, linalool, all that stuff. Like just really like know, like understand terpene percentages over like THC percentages. Like that's a big one. And know like what companies, like after a while, after you start buying, you'll understand certain companies do it better than other ones. So you'll start like seeing brands that like I trust more than anything else. I don't want to name them because I don't want to like talk down bad and upgrade other ones just because I know we're going to come out with cartridges soon and I don't want to like pigeonhole us. Like buy these ones and then we go on the market and it's like, yeah. But there are certain like you'll start to see like in oils you want more of like a yellow color, like the darker is going to be more like darker colors like the brown or like the blacks. It's not going to be as much flavor. It's not going to be as good. The lighter colors in the oils are probably going to be more what you want. So that's really what to look for.
Is there such thing as a dispensary etiquette, or not really?
Tip your bud tenders. If you go in, so because it's a service, right? Like I know there are probably, and I've seen it too. There's a lot of bud tenders that like just aren't properly educated because it's like the easiest job to get into. Because it's really funny because when I went into bud tending, I did it as like it was a pandemic. I needed a second job. Prices of rent were rising, and I was only trimming at the time, and so bud tender is usually where you start off, and then like you become a bud tender, you start meeting vendors. Oh, okay, well now this place, you work your way up. But I had gone from the top, now back to the bottom for a second job. So it was alarming to me how many bud tenders had no idea what they were talking about. In fact, like some of the places I worked at, I had to be like, hey, this is what they're looking for.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be an ass or trying to be cocky. It's just I understand what they're looking for.
Exactly.
And so there is like don't be the person that like, and this happens a lot, that smells like 1,000 strains. Let me smell this one. Let me smell that one. Let me smell that one. Let me smell that one. Let me look at that one again. And then you buy a gram of the cheapest stuff. It's like, that happens so much. It's just like,
a pre-roll.
Yeah, it's like, let me just get a single pre-roll.
Oh,
And
shit.
it's just like, and then they don't tip. They pay like exact change. It's like, if you have your bud tender help you out and explain everything to you, that's a wealth of knowledge. Put $1 in that. Put $1 in the jar. Obviously, if you're coming in like I know what I want, in and out. I never had any qualm. That's just like, give me this. I'm out of here. It's like, that's what you want.
Is a pre-roll considered like the bottom?
So pre-rolls,
or
it depends on the company that makes them. Some companies, they focus only on pre-rolls. So they're going to want like, I was talking to this company, I'll name them because they're really good, Cabana. And I was talking to one of the owners, and we were doing an event together down in Southern Oregon. And he's like, well, man, if you're going to sell to us, because obviously I'm always in work mode when I'm down there. He's just like, I want B-buds that can be sold as A's. So what he wants is fresh, top quality, so he can charge like the $12 a pre-roll. But a lot of them are just like, we haven't sold this bud. We're not going to let it sit. It still might be buds rather than trim. But it's going to be a little bit older. So it's still going to have that high test rate. But like I said before, like when THC deteriorates, it turns into CBN. So that CBN is the difference between indica and sativa. CBN's more indica. So it's going to be a little bit more sleepy than what you expect. But it's essentially just bud that hasn't sold, or it's like the smaller buds that they don't want to sell as B buds. We'll just grind it up and put it into pre-rolls. Some companies, it's like, yeah, you're buying trim. You're buying just shake, whatever, like whatever we couldn't sell. It's just, you're going to get high. Just, you're going to have to smoke a lot more of it, and you're not tasting anything. It's essentially like smoking a cigarette. You're just smoking to get what you can out of it. So it really depends on the company too.
Yeah, dude, if you ever need security, you're picking up like $250,000, dude. We're for hire, dude. Yeah. We're the muscle.
It's so sometimes I'll have to like pick up deliveries, and I think the most I've ever had on me was like a few grand. I'm not gonna say the exact amount, but enough to where like you're worried, because I also carry around like 20 to 25 pounds on me at any time. And we're not legally allowed to have guns. So if we have registered and we're all licensed, we cannot have any type of weapons on us. It is a big red flag. But it's kind of hard because I'm going to like middle of nowhere, Oregon. And so I had this one guy, I was at the gas station, like, you have 20 pounds of pot. I put them in Tough Totes. You smell it.
It smells.
Yeah, it smells.
I was gonna ask if you ever got stopped.
I haven't been stopped, but I have like been asked, like, can I have a sample? No. Everything down to the half gram is tracked. So this guy's like, oh man, it smells good in this car. I'm like, I know what he means. I'm like, thanks, man. And he sees the metric paperwork. He's like, can I have some? I'm like, no. Everything is tracked. And I let him know, like, everything is tracked. Everything is like registered. If I give you a gram, that gram's coming out of my ass. Like that's on me, and I can get 1 gram can get me to lose my license. I'm not playing around with this. He's like, oh, I won't tell nobody. I was like, it doesn't matter. When they weigh it out, they'll know this gram is missing. And he's like, oh. And so like, I'm just like, I need to get out of here. And I'm seeing him help like the gas attendant next to me, and like, they're like, oh yeah, you smell that? It's him over there, and he won't give me any. Like, yeah, he has a bunch over there. And as soon as the other attendant like took off like my gas tank, I was like zoomed off. I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
this is how you get robbed.
Yep.
I'm like 100%. I'm out of here. Like I did not mess around. So it's kind of hard with that. Like what you do is you just kind of like where you can, because there's certain places in Oregon that are small that like they allow you to pump your own gas. You just stay in your car, you know, like lock your doors, just get home. Like I don't like when I'm on the road, I'm not sitting down to eat at restaurants. I'm literally getting what I have. Like I'll try and find the healthiest option, so I don't do drive-through. But like it's literally like just get home, just get home. People won't mess with you because then you have that worry of like, what if somebody breaks into my car because I'm sitting down and eating? You just, I mean, the ideal goal is to sell everything, so you don't, you know, have that. But like that's
Still.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a little difficult in that sense. Like, you just gotta like. What I do is I don't dress like a pot. Like I know the long hair is one thing, but like the thing I stand out as a salesman is like, yeah, I work in pot, but I'm wearing dress shoes. I'm wearing like nice slacks. I won't be wearing like a long shirt button, but I'll be wearing a button up. You know, I'm straight professionalism. So that way it's like a little bit different, you know. But there are those people that it's like you sell weed. It's very clear, you know. But yeah, I try and stay professional just so that way I avoid those dangers. And any other sales reps watching this, drive the speed limit. You have a lot of product. Drive the speed limit.
Yeah.
There's like I want to get home too, but the cops in small towns are not that understanding.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
yeah,
Shit, man. Well, we had a blast talking with you, man.
it was great, man. I had a lot of fun.
We don't know a lot about this, but we learned a lot today.
That's
now
a
I feel
lot
knowledgeable.
of info, man, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I
Lot
can
of
go have
insight.
some serious conversations now.
Yeah, dude.
Really, man. Yeah, I
Looks like
appreciate
a-
having me on, man. Like just to like get our brand out there and like you know educate the people. You know, like if this educates like 2-3 people, I did my job.
Bam.
Yeah.
What's the business Instagram?
So if you follow us at Wyconish Cannabis on Instagram, you can find us there. And I know we got that one going up. And then we have our stores are going to be Eden Craft Cannabis. There's one in Salem, and then there's 4 in Portland. And so they all got our flower and just kind of asked for Wyconish or Arcadia. Those are going to be our farms. And trust me, you will not be disappointed.
There we go.
There we go.
Awesome. Thank you guys.